But the most important reason why we don't tithe yet is we don't trust God enough. We don't trust God enough, or to put it another way, we're afraid. Fear really is the issue, isn't it? We've got house payments, we've got car payments, we've got the taxes, we've got insurance, we've got utilities, we've got the food and all the rest. Where does God fit in the budget? If we tithe, we might face a financial nightmare. But if you go back historically, our grandparents and some of our parents tithed if they were active people of faith. Why did they find it possible to do it when we have trouble today? Was it that they were wealthier? I don't think so. It's actually probably the opposite. We have trouble tithing today because we've allowed our affluence to shape us rather than our faith. Our grandparents and some of our parents understood who owned their resources and where contentment comes from. Those are the 5 reasons why we have yet to tithe. When I introduced our message for today, I said we're going to talk about practical ways of using our money and our stuff to show that God is Lord of our lives. What do we need to do to develop the practice, to develop a habit in our lives of tithing? What sort of instruction do we get from our scripture lessons that Melanie read this morning? There are 6 values, 6 parts of the practice of tithing that we're going to talk about. Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 9, 6 and 7, "Each one of you must give as you have made up your mind, not reluctantly or under compulsion." In other words, the first value that helps us develop the practice is that it's intentional. If you're to give as you have made up your mind, then you have to have made up your mind. To be intentional means to make up your mind, to develop a plan for giving, and then turn your plan into action. No one tithes accidentally. Name one person you admire and respect in this world because of all they've kept for themselves. Name one person you admire and respect in this world who never gives, who constantly complains about giving, or who always gives the least amount required. No one tithes accidentally. Intentionality is the first value. If you find yourself looking in your wallet or purse as you get out of the car on Sunday morning to discover what you have available for the morning offering, then you probably have some work to do in being intentional. If your giving to the church changes week to week depending upon your checkbook balance, you likely have more work to do in becoming intentional in your giving. Paul writes about the second value, which is regularity. In 1 Corinthians 16:2, he says, "On the first day of every week, each of you is to put aside and save whatever extra you earn, so that collections need not be taken when I come." So Paul prescribes a regular pattern for giving each week. That works where people are paid daily, which is what was true in Paul's time. You can set aside each week. Well, in today's society, it doesn't always work that way. Some people are paid weekly, some are paid every 2 weeks, some are paid once a month, and in an agrarian society, some people get their payoff once a year. Some people give weekly, some people every other week, some can give once a month then, some once a year. But the point is, follow the plan in some sort of regular practice. Tithing provides a consistent, universal baseline for disciples, not a haphazard, reactive, mechanical process. So we've got intentional, we've got regular. The third value is generous. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 9:8, "And God is able to provide you with every blessing in abundance, so that by always having enough of everything, you may share abundantly in every good work. Paul is telling us that God's generosity is incredible, and it's the basis for any call for generous giving on the part of God's people. You'll hear me say this again at least 2 more times today. We can't outgive God. Generous. If giving to the church is similar to writing a check at the end of the month to pay the phone bill and then forgetting about it for the rest of the next month, you're not giving enough. If you take spare change or a $10 bill from your wallet or purse for the offering and never notice the difference, your giving has too little significance for you and for your church. Generosity is the third value. A fourth value is giving first. Moses writes of the practice of Israel in Deuteronomy 26. He says, when you've come into the land that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess, and you possess it and settle in it, you shall take some of the first of all the fruit of the ground, which you harvest from the land that the Lord your God is giving you, and you shall put it in a basket, and go to that place that the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name. The first fruits, the first check. What a marvelous sight it is this time of year to see a tractor with a wagon behind headed to town heaped with golden grain. Isn't that fantastic? The image of giving that used to be the case in small towns that revolved around agriculture was the image of the farmer. Think of it this way. The farmer headed to town with his wagon and loaded with grain would swing by the church first and drop off 10% and then take the remaining 90% to the elevator. That was the image our grandparents and some of our parents had. Now, I'm pretty sure that you all would not want a pile of grain on the church lawn, so we need to translate that into an image for the 21st century. Giving first, giving to God first, and living off the rest. The first check you write is to the church. Before you pay the rest of the bills, before you head to the grocery store, write the tithe check. Because if we don't give to God first, because of our natural appetites and because of the culture in which we live, we'll end up shortchanging whom? God.